Hey friends, welcome back to the Kids Ministry Circle channel. It is that time of year. I am going to walk through a ton of the VBS curriculums on the market for 2026 to help you make the best decision for your summer 2026 programming. Now, we are not going to talk about every VBS on the market. That would take forever because there are so many options. We are going to hit the big ones. We're going to talk about a few small ones, talk about some things that you guys wanted to know as you plan and prepare for VBS 2026. Now, there used to be major differences amongst the curriculum. Think 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were so many key differences, and there often was maybe one or two curriculums that would rise to the top as the best options. These would be the curriculums that you would see at churches on every corner in your neighborhood. And I'm excited to say that as our curriculum writers have just gotten so much better, as research has come out around how to engage kids and encourage their faith and tie in child development, our curriculums are getting so incredibly amazing. They're all growing with alignment together, which is exciting. It kind of helps you as the leader know that no matter what curriculum I pick, it's going to be biblically sound and amazing for the kids and families in our ministry. Now, there will always be differences. As we'll walk through some unique components to every curriculum, you will see the key differences between curriculum provider to curriculum provider. But as I was looking through and as I was researching, I didn't see any big alarming differences. So your decision might come down to what theme you want to go with, or what focus you want your week to have for this summer, not necessarily which curriculum is the best decision. Now that should give you a sigh of relief. There is no best VBS curriculum out there. Just know that from the very beginning, you're not going to be able to pick, this is the best curriculum on the market. You want to change that phrase to what is the best curriculum for me, for my church, for my capability as a leader, for our budget, and for our entire ministry. So keep that at the forefront of your VBS curriculum decision. Now let's get into the weeds talking about VBS curriculums for 2026. All right, the first curriculum that we are going to look at is Orange curriculum. If you know anything about the curriculum world, you know that Orange has gone through some major transition seasons over the past year or year and a half. And so I am super excited to look at this new curriculum from them. Their theme is called Kingdom Quest, an epic journey to discover God's kingdom, which I love talking about God's kingdom. Kingdom Quest is an experience designed to take kids on an unforgettable journey to discover what it means to follow Jesus and find life in God's kingdom. This curriculum costs $299 and it's a digital curriculum. What you will find in this curriculum is a director's guide, leader handbook, daily rotations, video content, original music, all the basics of a typical VBS curriculum. Their weekly plan is all about Jesus. Every day starts with a because of Jesus, comma, fill in the blank for that day's lesson. We're talking about, I am called, nothing can shake me. Because of Jesus, I am saved. Because of Jesus, I am made new. Because of Jesus, I am sent. I love these. I think they're great. This is very different from what Orange has done in the past. When I was looking back at even last year's curriculum, their bottom lines, their daily focuses barely had anything to do with Jesus. Not to say that their lessons didn't. Their lessons were full of scriptures and Bible stories, but their main takeaway for the day didn't say clearly anything about Jesus or God or even the Holy Spirit, which is day 5. And so this is new. This is different from what Orange has done in the past, and I'm a fan. Some unique elements to the Kingdom Quest curriculum is that it's a full summer strategy. They use VBS as an acronym for versatile, biblical, and strategic. So you will see with the purchase of the Kingdom Quest curriculum, you get access to June and July Sunday morning curriculum, which could be used for July and August, could be used for just July, could be used for an entire summer program. Maybe you do it Wednesday nights over the summer. There's lots of ways to use this curriculum. My question is, with June and July, will you get access to APlay? I don't know. Maybe by the time this video comes out, I will have an answer. So check the description below. But you get access to their full strategy. It's always been a part of Orange VBS, maybe to try and get people to use the curriculum, to test the curriculum, and maybe potentially buy the curriculum. So in classic Orange fashion, you get a ton of stuff. You get a ton of activities, you get a ton of rotations. Their desire to be a curriculum for a small church, right? They talk about that in the versatile component of like, we could do a no building, we could do setup and tear down, we could do church and we could do VBS in the park. But as I was looking through this, I think to get the most out of this specific curriculum, you would want to use all the extras. You would want to have a stage and a screen and video component and a worship team and all of these extra things to really make it what it is. I will say a side note is that sometimes when we think about kingdom, we think classic knight in shining armor, medieval kingdom, and this kingdom is more of a Minecraft video game type of kingdom. The graphics look amazing. So just know that if you're like, oh cool, we get to build a giant castle and have a knight and have a sword and horses and all the things, that's not exactly what the theme is. So make sure you do some research on the theme before you order your knight costume. You get a lot of stuff, you get a lot of content, you'll have to sift through the activities, but this sounds like a really awesome curriculum to potentially use for summer. All right, moving on. Curriculum number 2 is we are going to be talking about answers in Genesis. Now, if you watched the 2025 VBS curriculum video, you know that I am new-ish to Answers in Genesis. I was looking at their VBS curriculum for the first time last year and was in love with all the things that they are doing. Their theme this year is Emerald Crossing, an Irish adventure through Psalm 23, which I think is a really unique take on a VBS curriculum. I've actually never seen a VBS curriculum that focused on Psalm 23. We saw this a little bit last year with High Voltage's curriculum going through the story of Jonah. It's rare to find a VBS curriculum that takes a chunk of scriptures or a book of the Bible and focus on that rather than going from Genesis to Revelation in every one of the 5 days. So I think this is very unique. The theme is very unique. And so the cost of this curriculum is $2.99 for the Digital Pro. Answers in Genesis has 4 different buying options. It's slightly confusing. They have Digital Pro, Super Starter Kit, and Digital Pro, and just the Starter Kit. From what I could see, there's differences in what type of music you like. Some of them include the contemporary music, some you only get traditional music, some is downloadable, some is hard copies. And so take a look at that. I always recommend digital copies. A hard copy can easily get lost, or it's just, I don't deal with hard copy curriculum anymore, and I don't recommend that people do. And so my recommendation would be to buy the Digital Pro. Get everything digitally, get all the music, and with the Digital Pro, you get their whole like registration system where you can register kids, send emails, sign up volunteers, do all the things. If you don't have a church management system that will do this for you, this is the next best step. So that's the rundown of their purchasing process. So when we look at their 5-day content, it's always something to something, which I think, again, this is a unique way to teach a curriculum throughout VBS. And each of those sides of the daily theme is kind of like before Christ and in Christ. So here's what you are when you are walking in sin, when you don't know Jesus, and here's what's available to you in Christ, living and following Jesus and living with him. So again, I just think you're going to hear me say it's very cool all the time. I just think it's very cool. So day 1 is lost to found. Day 2 is wrong path to right path. Day 3 is fearful to peaceful. Day 4 is grumbling to grateful. And then day 5 is shaky to sure. And again, we're going through Psalm 23. We're also following the story of David because David wrote Psalm 23. And so you will see the story of 1 Samuel in and through this curriculum as well. So some notable, unique components to this curriculum is every day there's going to be a different name for God. So you're going to learn a characteristic of God. You're going to learn a name for God, which again, when you help kids understand who God is, it helps them understand who they are in light of Christ. All of these different identity conversations come up when you're talking about the different names of God. So every day is a different name for God. They're following the story of David, like I mentioned. With the Answers in Genesis curriculum, you see a ton of apologetic questions, a kind of helping kids understand, now that I know this, what do I do with it? And so here's an example. Day 1, their lesson focus is, like David, I can be a child of God and have the Lord as my shepherd. Here's the apologetic focus. Is the Lord a distant God? Did he create the universe and then just sit back and watch? That's a question that a lot of kids are asking. And so this curriculum tackles some of those big questions that kids would normally be asking in a friend group or maybe to a small group leader, and helps them understand how God's truth is still relevant today, which this is very unique to this curriculum. You don't see it a lot of other places. And I think, again, it's so great. Some other things I saw with the Answers in Genesis curriculum is that they go really above and beyond with the theme. They take a theme and really go for it here. In the director's guide, there were things like animal jokes, Ireland terms to know. There are cute additions that can take your VBS experience really to the next level. If you want to create an environment where kids walk in and literally their entire environment transforms, this is a really helpful curriculum to be able to do that. And as I was reading the curriculum, one thing I noted is that there's not really a very clear gospel presentation day. Sometimes in a curriculum, and this is maybe a little old school, but sometimes in a curriculum you say okay, day 3 or day 4 is like a clear gospel presentation, a salvation respond time. And you don't really see that in Answers in Genesis from what I could see from the resources on the website. When I was looking at it, Monday would make the most sense to really clearly present the gospel because you're talking about going from lost to being found. And so it's just something to think about of not only how are you going to teach the gospel, but how are you going to give kids an opportunity to respond? Or how are you going to really champion the home to allow parents and kids to have this conversation, to be reminded of the gospel and to be given an option to respond to the gospel. The last thing I noticed, which again was my note last year, of there's a ton of daily information. There's a daily memory verse, there's a daily name for God, there's a daily theme, there's a daily something, there's just a ton of daily information. And so my encouragement, if you were to pick this curriculum, which if you love this curriculum, I am in your corner, you should go for it. Just remember, you don't want to give kids too many things to walk away with for the day. Say, hey, this is our main focus for the day. This is what I want you to walk away from remembering. So when parents say, hey, what did you learn? What is the one thing you want them to learn? What is the one thing you want them to for sure know? Not to say that you can't say all these other daily components, but narrowing down to, okay, what's the one thing we want our kids knowing for sure on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? All right, curriculum number 3 is Lifeway, Illumination Station, shining a light on who Jesus really is. While many people claim to know about Jesus, many are in the dark about who he really is. During this VBS, kids will explore all the ways light brightens, illuminates, reflects, and reveals. So again, here we are with Lifeway curriculum. They have 3 different ways to purchase curriculum. I think maybe 4. I've always said Lifeway's ordering system is slightly confusing. So it's $118 for the multi-age starter kit, which I think is new this year. I think Previous years, they've had a preschool starter kit and an elementary starter kit, but they've combined it into one starter kit, which is like so brilliant. It's $38.99 for the director's guide. It's $48 for the worship rally. And then I know there's a student add-on that you can buy if you wanted to do a student VBS or student leader program. Make sure you're getting what you want. I highly encourage getting the worship rally. The director's guide is really helpful because I think you get some music and some things sent to you. And then of course you want that starter kit with all the lessons in it. It still comes out about to what all the other curriculums cost. It's just kind of separate purchases. But I do think when I looked at the website, there's a bundle for everything that you can get, which again is helpful in the ordering process. So as we look at the weekly plan for Lifeway's Illumination Station, one of the things that I really liked about it is that they're connecting the Old Testament to the New Testament. They are saying, no, this is one big story that Jesus is really God's son. Again, this is a truth that kids have to know if they are going to begin to differentiate between the Christian faith and all the other truths and all the other things that people are claiming outside of the Christian faith. This is a core doctrine to following Jesus, is believing that Jesus is God's son. Every day talks about who Jesus is. Day 1 is Jesus is God's promised son. Day 2 is Jesus is God's perfect son. Day 3 is Jesus is the powerful son of God. Day 4, Jesus is the proven son of God. And day 5, Jesus is God's plan for salvation. And so I love how they are taking these stories in helping kids really understand who Jesus is, right? Illuminating, brightening. If Jesus is the light of the world, what does that actually mean? So they are going to talk about it, which I love. The Illumination Station, again, is a very cute theme. There's a lot that you can do with it. There's a lot of ways to brighten up, get it? Brighten up your space so that you can create a full experience for kids that are walking into your environment. Lifeway is one of the most dependable curriculums on the market. You get the same components every year. Now, I will share something different that I noticed this year, but for the most part, it is generally the same structure, which if you are a new to VBS leader, or maybe you did Lifeway's curriculum last year and liked it, going to a dependable curriculum is not a bad thing. It actually helps your leaders lead well when they know what the expectations are. And so dependable is not bad. It's actually can be really helpful. It's dependable when it comes to content. You know this curriculum is going to be biblically sound. You know it's going to give you everything you need, which is always a good thing, especially if you're a part-time leader or a bivocational leader or even a volunteer VBS director. We love dependability. So some unique elements to this specific curriculum is in the small group, as I was reading it, there's a illuminate your heart section, which I thought was really cute, of just like, what does it look like to provide space for kids to sit and ask themselves a question, get in the habit and rhythm of hearing from God, of asking some of these hard questions, of examining our own heart. I thought that was a really fun and unique component that ties very well into the overall Illumination Station theme. And then in the small groups, you're going to see 5 components to their small group. Start it, learn it, know it, live it, and end it, which are really helpful markers for that small group time that's inside one of the rotations. Again, they give you everything you need, lots of activities, lots of stuff to sift through. But I, as someone who's reading the small group component, I was like, oh, this would be really helpful for a volunteer who is following along and knowing when and where and how to communicate things. So I thought that was a fun and unique component. As we look at both Answers in Genesis curriculum and Lifeway's curriculum, you want to really make sure that your volunteers are confident when it comes to making disciples and teaching these stories and helping kids understand these big core Christian doctrines. I would not say that you can't use these curriculums for maybe a church that has a lot of kids that are coming that are non-believers, but you want to be really proactive in helping your volunteers be prepared for those conversations. These are some big topics, right? Jesus is God's son is kind of like a big deal. Going from lost to found is a very abstract thought. And so you want to help your volunteers. You want to be one step ahead and say, hey, your kids might ask this question, or here's an easier way to describe this to a kindergartner. Just keep that in mind as you're thinking about curriculums. Notice the kids in your church. Notice the families who come to VBS. Are you a stop along a full summer of VBS programs for families? Are you getting families from your community who know nothing about Jesus? That should impact the curriculum that you choose and the way that you teach, the way that you equip your small group leaders. And so keep that in mind as you are looking through these curriculums of what's going to be the best for our community and for our kids that are coming. All right, the fourth curriculum is high voltage. And similar to Answers in Genesis, last year was the first year that I really looked at the VBS curriculum from high voltage, and I loved it all. I told them over and over again that the theme song was so good. I loved how they took the story of Jonah and really laid it out across the 5 days. I just loved it. And so I was super excited for their theme for this year. Their theme is Masterpiece. And so they are taking the 5 days and really helping these kids understand their identity in Christ. Throughout the 5 days, they're going through the book of Genesis. And then on day 5, they're adding in a component from the book of Acts. And so let's go through the week. Day 1 is God, the master artist. So talking about Genesis 1 and creation. Day 2, God's masterpiece. So talking about Genesis 2, how God created man and woman. Day 3, designed for a purpose. So Genesis 3, continuing in that creation story and learning how we were designed on purpose for a purpose. Day 4 is the big picture. And day 5 is paint the world when they talk about the book of Acts and being sent out as the church. I love these themes. I love this conversation around identity. I love this conversation around how we are designed with a purpose. It's so, so, so important for kids to understand how they were created in God's image. And I love this theme. I love the masterpiece theme. When I was at a kids ministry conference back in the fall, they had this giant paintbrush and it was so cute. And so there's so many different ways that you can go with this. If you do maybe a sports camp or an art camp, this is a curriculum that would be perfect. Maybe you don't run a typical VBS program, but you do something different. Maybe it's outside focused or you bring in coaches or whatever. This would be a curriculum that would go brilliantly with a different type of sports camp, arts camp kind of program for your ministry. I just think it's right there. Masterpiece, created on a purpose, created uniquely in God's image. It is right there for you. And it's so fun. Some of the unique things about the high voltage curriculum is that they always have a what you gotta know statement, which I think, again, when we talk about helping kids walk away with something, of making sure that when they get in the car, they have something to say to their parents, they have something to say to their friends and family, the what you gotta know. And I know it's weaved in throughout their large group, but this statement helps your volunteers tremendously narrow down and feel confident about this is what we're learning today. I know last year, which I assume they had done this again for 2026, is that there's like a fun song. It's weaved into large group. It's a whole thing where it's all about what you gotta know, which I love that phrase. I think it's very fun. Another component that is unique to high voltage is that every day they have a built-in altar experience. And so if I say altar experience and you automatically go, no way, we don't do that, I would like for you to sit and just assess. Like, altar experiences are not bad, but the way that you use them and your strategy behind them is very important. You want to make sure that you're championing the home, but you also want to give kids an opportunity to respond to what they're learning. If that freaks you out, just look at it. Do some research. Look at the things that they're writing in the altar experience. I said this last year and I'll say it again. I think having one big altar experience throughout the week might be helpful. It also might freak out your volunteers. The way that you strategically use the altar experience can really adapt to your ministry, and you don't have to do it every day. That's the great thing with with all of the VBS curriculums, is that if you love certain components and you don't like other components, you don't have to use those other components. If you want to take a curriculum and add on or write something different, or I know for us, in my experience, the last 4 years, we've taken a VBS curriculum and I've written my own large group script. I didn't use the large group script that was provided. I wrote our own with our own characters based on who was going to be able to serve that week. So you can change it and adapt it, and don't use certain things, then use certain things. Don't hear that and say, oh, we can't use this curriculum. You actually can. And sometimes going out of maybe your comfort zone of leaving space for kids to hear from the Holy Spirit can be extremely powerful for both kids, volunteers, and parents. So don't be afraid, but it's in there. It's in the curriculum. I love what Brian and his team are doing at High Voltage, and I think this curriculum is another great option. All right, curriculum number 5 is group curriculum. Last year, I did not mention group curriculum, and people were like, what about group? So let's talk about it. Their theme this year is called Rainforest Falls, and it's all about exploring the nature of God. And their curriculum is the most expensive curriculum on the market. It's starting at $315, and I don't know why it's so expensive. It just is. So let's go through their days. Day 1 is God is our creator. Day 2, God knows everything. Day 3, God is our safe place. Day 4, God is love. And day 5, God is forever. And so again, there's a lot of different components with this curriculum. What I love about group curriculum is that they give so many different variations on how to run the day. They really come alongside the new VBS leader. If you have no idea what you're doing, their resources for the director of VBS or for the kids ministry staff person are so incredibly helpful. You will see the rainforest theme throughout all the things. I do think the Bible buddies are maybe unnecessary. It's always this tricky balance in kids ministry. It's like, how far do we take the theme? I know in some curriculum companies, their policy is that they don't have animals tell the story. They don't give animals a voice because God didn't give animals a voice, except for that one time in the Bible. But overall, I think this curriculum is a great resource. Just keep in mind of your budget and what you have time for. And so that is Rainforest Falls. Another thing about group curriculum is that they provide 3 different VBS curriculums. They have the Rainforest Falls, which we just talked about. They have their VBS curriculum about Paul in Rome, and they have their weekend VBS called Galaxy, launching kids in the mission of God's love. They're the only curriculum company that actually provides a weekend VBS. And so if you are trying to pull off a 3-day or a weekend VBS, this is a really great resource that you can use and adapt and kind of help create whatever you are hoping to create for VBS. So definitely look at group if you are looking for a wide variety of resources. I also think that the way that group writes their curriculum can be very interdenominational. So say you're running a camp for like a local Boys and Girls Club or at a YMCA or with a very large group of kids that spans a lot of different faith backgrounds or different denominations. I would say group is a really great resource for that. You will see that some of our other curriculums come from a specific denomination. Not to say that you have to use that curriculum, but I think group thinks bigger picture and how they are communicating certain things in their stories. The last VBS curriculum that I am going to talk about is a sports camp curriculum. This is very trendy right now in kids ministry, and I think it's brilliant if you have the resources and definitely the space to make a sports camp happen. I know there's one here in Colorado that sells out. They max out their building every single year, and they are so intentional about inviting local coaches from the area to help take on a sport and disciple a kid's through playing soccer or through doing cheerleading things. And it's just a really unique way to connect with your community. And so this Sports Camp VBS curriculum is from Mega Sports Camp. Their theme this year is Mission Cup, and it's very cute. They have this like trophy on the logo graphic. It's very sporty. And so the cost of this VBS curriculum is $259. And I have never looked at a sports camp curriculum before. I've never had to buy one, and I was really impressed. I think it's definitely different, and so it's definitely different themes than you would see in a typical VBS curriculum. But if you are running a sports camp, this would be a really fun addition to your content that you're teaching. The schedule is all laid out for you. They give you a very well thought out sample schedule on how you do the sports. They have a halftime rally, which I think is really unique and a different component for VBS, where typical schedules are opening rally, closing rally, but I think the halftime rally is a really fun aspect. So let's go through their days. Day 1 is focus. Jesus helps us focus on what matters most. Day 2 is respect. Jesus shows us how to treat others with kindness. Day 3 is humility. Jesus teaches us to put others first. Day 4 is endurance. Jesus gives us strength to keep going. This is when they talk about the crucifixion story and the big story of the gospel. And then day 5 is leadership, and Jesus shows us how to lead others. One component that I really liked about this curriculum is that every day they share a story about an athlete that is a believer who has faced a hard season in their athletic career. And I always love showing kids other adults who are loving and following Jesus in their own career, so that they help get a bigger picture of, oh, I can follow Jesus and I don't have to work at a church. I can be an athlete. I can love soccer and love Jesus. I can play football and love Jesus. I think this is a really fun option for those of you who are looking to do a sports camp, who are adding in some of those sports camp elements and looking for a curriculum to go alongside that. Lastly, some honorable mentions of other resources that are out there that may be a good fit for you. I saw that New Growth Press has a VBS curriculum that I think came out last year. It's called Proof Pirates, and it's written by some people and voices that I trust deeply in the kids ministry world. So I was excited. I was like, oh, I had never seen this curriculum before. Proof Pirates introduces kids to God's amazing grace through a 5-day pirate-themed curriculum. Who doesn't love a pirate-themed curriculum? For use in Bible clubs and vacation Bible school, it explains the doctrines of grace using the popular Proof acronym with the book of Ephesians, which is God's grace is planned, resurrecting, outrageous, overcoming, and forever. So kids know that it's not their performance that makes them right with God. It's very cute. It's one of the cheaper options out there, but still gives you all that you need. The other honorable mentions are Grow Curriculum has a lot of options. They're all free. I've heard incredible things about their VBS curriculums. I don't know if they're coming out with one for 2026. I haven't seen anything announced, but their circus theme from 2025 was very cute. The last one is Raise Up Faith VBS. They have, I think it's a camping theme that they launched last year, and that's a great resource. It's very cost effective, and it's from a great company. All right, so those are the big curriculums that are out there for you to choose from. And if you are listening to this and you are brand new to kids ministry or brand new to VBS and you are just stepping into this world and you are like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start. I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to make a decision. That is very common. You are not alone in that. Starting VBS and running VBS can feel very overwhelming. Here are my top 3 tips to get started. 1, start early by picking a curriculum and building a team. I always recommend starting the VBS process in January. Even if you are just making time for 30 minutes a week, you're adding it to your schedule of just here's 30 minutes a week to just think about VBS. Make sure I am doing small things that build up into some of those big planning decisions. So start with small steps and invite people into the process. This is when you hand pick people you want to lead rotations, teach large group, help with crafts. Start early so that you have more space to take suggestions and build ideas and tweak things and create a team that will help you lead out VBS and share the load. Number 2, know your budget. If you're like, oh, I want to do a VBS in 2026, but I have no idea how much I can spend, have those conversations now. When you figure out how and when you want to spend your money, it really helps you decide, what curriculum can I buy? What can I design on the stage? Can I bring in an ice cream truck for day 5? All of these things really depend on how you are going to spend your budget money. So know your budget. And the last thing, step 3, is promote early. If you haven't sent a save the date to your families, send one this week. Send an email, pick a curriculum, pick a theme, send a save the date email. Summer planning for families starts in January. If you are wondering when you should launch registration, think on or before Easter Sunday. Easter is a time when you have a lot of visitors, and it's likely that those visitors are looking for something for their kids to do this summer. So set up a table or maybe a simple pop-up sign with a QR code that leads to registration. Even if your sign was simply the name of your church, kids camp, there can be maybe no dates on it, but just, hey, register for kids camp. And then there's the QR code where they can learn more information. And that sign you can use over and over and over again. So start promoting early, know your budget, build your team, promote early. Use this time to tell families, invite your community, and invite people to come and spend a week or a couple days with you and your church this summer. If you are looking for more tips and more helpful resources to plan and prepare for VBS 2026, join us for our VBS workshop coming up this January, or find the replay and resources over on our website. All the links are in the description below. I'd love to know what VBS curriculum you are using for summer 2026. Drop it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.